This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
Top oil exporter Saudi Arabia may raise the official selling price, OSP, for flagship Arab light crude in May after Middle East benchmarks strengthened last month, industry sources said. The May OSP for Arab light crude could rise by 20 to 30 cents a barrel from April, according to a Reuters survey of 6 refining sources. The expectation of higher prices comes after the backwardation structure in the Dubai benchmark narrowed by 33 cents a barrel in March versus February, Reuters data showed. When the market is in backwardation, prompt prices are higher than those in future months, implying tight supply.
Oil prices added to recent gains on Monday amid expectations of tighter supply from OPEC Plus cuts and attacks on Russian refineries, while upbeat Chinese manufacturing data supported the outlook for improving demand. Brent crude was 25 cents, or 0.3%, higher at $87.25 a barrel by 0830 GMT after rising 2.4% last week. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude was at $83.44 a barrel, up 27 cents, or 0.3%, following a 3.2% gain last week. Trading volumes were thin as markets in several countries remained closed for the Easter holidays.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
India's hydroelectricity output fell at the steepest pace in at least 38 years during the year ended March 31st, a Reuters analysis of government data showed, as erratic rainfall forced further dependence on coal-fired power amid higher demand. The 16.3% drop in generation from the country's biggest clean energy source coincided with the share of renewables in power generation sliding for the first time since Prime Minister Narendra Modi made commitments to boost solar and wind capacity at the United Nations climate talks at Paris in 2015. Renewables accounted for 11.7% of India's power output in the year that ended in March, down from 11.8% a year earlier, a Reuters analysis of daily load dispatch data from the federal grid regulator Grid India showed.
Cuban state-run media said at the weekend that 90,000 metric tons of Russian oil had arrived in the cash and fuel-short country to help alleviate power outages and gasoline shortages. In 2022, Russia resumed some oil shipments to the communist-run Caribbean island after they ceased with the collapse of the Soviet Union. However, according to shipping data, no Russian oil left the country for Cuba last year, even as Russian media reported in June an agreement was reached between the two governments to supply 1.64 million metric tons of oil and derivatives annually. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. Russia's Nornickel, the world's largest palladium producer and a major producer of high-grade nickel, said on Friday that some clients in the European Union had refused to buy products made with Russian metals. Although Nornickel itself and its metals is not a target of Western sanctions, some consumers are voluntarily shunning deals for its metals and of products made from Russian raw materials, said Anton Berlin, vice president for sales. Nornickel's Finnish Harjavalta plant, which produces battery materials in Europe for electric vehicles, was affected, he added, as an example of the rejection of products made from Russian materials.
Iron ore futures reversed early losses on Monday, helped by data that showed China's manufacturing activity expanded for the first time in 6 months in March, bolstering confidence in the top consumer. The official Purchasing Managers' Index rose to 50.8 in March from 49.1 in February, according to an official factory survey on Sunday. The most traded September iron ore contract on China's Dalian Commodity Exchange closed 2.6% higher at 768 yuan, $106.23 a metric ton. It had briefly slumped to its lowest since March 18 earlier in the day.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
Strategie Grains lowered its forecast for this year's rapeseed output in the European Union for a second consecutive month to 18.1 million metric tons, down from an earlier projection of 18.3 million, due mainly to a lower expected harvest in France. The new rapeseed crop forecast is now 9% below last year's harvest of 19.9 million tons. To compensate for the fall in domestic supplies in the 2024-25 season, the consultancy expects a rise in rapeseed imports from Australia and Ukraine. That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.